Is there an expectation of privacy when you're in a public place in the UK? The short answer is sometimes yes. It's a common belief that being in public means that you have no privacy at all and that anything visible can be filmed without restriction. That sounds logical on the surface, but it's not actually how UK law works. Because the key concept here is something called a reasonable expectation of privacy. This comes from the law, and it means that whether someone has privacy rights depends on the specific circumstances and not just simply whether they're in a public place or not. So the question isn't, is this public or private? It's, would a reasonable person expect privacy in this situation? In many everyday situations, the answer will be no. If someone's walking down the street, attending a public event, or simply going about their day in a visible public space, then there's generally no reasonable expectation of privacy. Filming in those circumstances is usually lawful, but there are important exceptions, and this is where the law becomes a bit more nuanced. A person can still have a reasonable expectation of privacy in a public place depending on what they're doing, how they're being filmed, and how and what that footage is going to be used for. For example, if someone's in a vulnerable situation, and I think we've seen that some people who used to class themselves as auditors have now given up their usual method of turning up at industrial sites and security places and annoying the employees there until they get a reaction enough to film a confrontation. And they have now taken to going to city centres, usually very, very late at night, early in the morning, and filming drunk people, particularly young drunk women. Now, people like that could be classed as being in a vulnerable situation. So that being in a public place doesn't allow them to be filmed like that. If the filming is intrusive, if it's persistent, or if it's focused specifically on one person, or even a small group of people, then the situation is usually treated differently. The courts have made it clear that context matters. The location is only one part of the equation. Other factors include the nature of the activity, the level of the intrusion, and whether that person could reasonably expect to be left alone. This is why you'll sometimes hear that there can be an expectation of privacy even in public. It's not about redefining public space. It's about recognising that privacy is not an all or nothing concept. Now, for drone operators, this means the rules are no simply you can film anything you can see or your drone can see. In practice, filming wide landscapes, buildings, and general public scenes will rarely raise privacy issues. But deliberately focusing on individuals, repeatedly filming the same person, or capturing sensitive situations could potentially cross a line depending on the circumstances. The law is designed to balance two things: the freedom to film in public and the protection of individuals. And that is a protection for individuals from unjustified intrusion. Understanding that balance is what allows you to operate confidently and responsibly. So while there is often no expectation of privacy in public, it's not absolute. The reality is more nuanced, and it always comes back to the same question: what would a reasonable person expect in that situation?